Could you all please rise for the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor of Perth, Mr Basil Zemplis.
Thank you, everybody, and good evening. Can I welcome you all to the City of Perth May 2023 agenda briefing session. I'm going to formally declare the session open at 5:01 p.m. and with that, respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, the Whadjuk Noongar people of Western Australia. It's a privilege to be standing on Whadjuk Noongar land, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. And with that, CEO, can I ask you please to recite the prayer?
Almighty God, under whose providence we hold responsibility for this city, grant us wisdom to understand its present needs, foresight to anticipate its future growth, and grace to serve our fellow citizens with integrity and selfless devotion. And to thee be all blessing and glory forever. Amen.
Thank you very much. Please be seated, everybody. So the first thing I'll do is remind everybody that in accordance with Council Policy 1.4, particularly for those who might be joining us for the first time today, that this meeting is being live streamed and the recording will be made available on the City's website following the meeting. We'll go through now our attendance today, item 3, and in attendance today is the Deputy Lord Mayor, Liam Gobbett. Hello, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Sandy Angie, a warm welcome to you, Councillor Angie, also. Councillor Clyde Bevan, hello, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Brent Fleeton, good evening, Councillor Fleeton. And Councillor Rebecca Gordon, hello to Councillor Gordon. We have apologies received just a short time ago from Councillor Victor Coe. And in addition, Councillor Catherine Leeser is currently on an approved leave of absence. And I will remind councillors to please submit any applications for a leave of absence prior to next week's ordinary council meeting. Don't believe we have apologies from Councillor Bain, but perhaps Councillor Bain is going to join us soon. Let me just check. No message to me. In addition, I also welcome the Chief Executive Officer, other officers and any members of the public or media in attendance or watching on live stream. Item 4 is announcements by the Lord Mayor. Typically I sort of save these for the council meetings, but given it happened today, I just want to thank and acknowledge my fellow councillors for their support of the name change request which came before council late last year. You will recall that we received a request indirectly facilitated by DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, which had come directly from the... Is Councillor Bain? There we go. Welcome, Councillor Bain. Come on in and we'll acknowledge Councillor Bain has joined us. That request came directly from the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, direct to the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, and then made its way to the City of Perth. And just briefly, it is worth mentioning the story of Private Solani. He was born in India, arrived in Geraldton from India in 1895. He was 22. He worked as a labourer before enlisting with the Australian Imperial Forces during World War I in 1916 as one of 12 known Indian Anzacs. He sailed out from Fremantle on the 6th of June 1916. A month and a half later on July 21, and sadly he was killed in action in France on the 1st of June 1917. His remains were buried and are buried in Belgium. The request for the name change came direct from the Prime Minister of India after he had become acquainted with this story. And it's impossible not to find this story touching. Not only did it represent those people of Indian origin or Indian descent who had come to Australia for a new life and for greater opportunity, but it also demonstrated their commitment to their new homeland to answer the call of duty. Tragically, he lost his life, as did many other new Australians who signed up to fight for the Australian Imperial Forces. And so today it was my great pleasure on behalf of the City of Perth Council, who supported this name change request, along with representatives from the WA State Government and a great cross-section of the Indian community, to preside as the name of Nelson Avenue was changed to Ceylani Avenue to commemorate Indian Anzac Private Nan Singh Ceylani. And for those wondering, Nelson Avenue was chosen because of A, its proximity to the Wacker, where our common love of cricket, the Indian and Australian people have shared many great memories down at the WACA ground, but also in looking for a name, it was identified that Nelson was a name given to both Nelson Crescent and to Nelson Avenue. Nelson, of course, named in honour of Admiral Horatio Nelson, the British naval commander. Given there was still a Nelson to stay in vogue and in operation down near the Wacker, the Nelson Avenue option was taken. It was a fitting ceremony today and a wonderful thing for the City of Perth to have been able to help facilitate. And I was very proud of the decision of Council to be able to do that and to officiate today. Let's move to item 5, which is disclosures of interest. And CEO, I think you've got a few tonight.
Yes, Lord Mayor, the following interests have been disclosed. Excuse me. The Lord Mayor has disclosed a direct financial interest in item 12.1 as 7 West Media is his principal place of employment. The Lord Mayor has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 12.1 as a person known to him, Paul Nash, is involved with the management of the event. Deputy Lord Mayor Liam Gobbett has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 12.1 as a friend, Rachel Davidson, is closely associated in the management of the Perth International Jazz Festival. Deputy Lord Mayor Liam Gobbett has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 12.3 as existing and recommended members of the LGBTQIA+ advisory group are personal friends. Councillor Rebecca Gordon has disclosed a direct financial interest in item 12.2 as she owns a property at 11/838 Hay Street, Perth, and as the owner of a heritage property is able to apply for a heritage rates concession. Councillor Di Bain has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 12.3 as David Gonzalez volunteered on her election campaign. Paul Elaine Hunt worked for her a long time ago. Steve Wellard is known to her through his community connections at West Perth Local. Councillor Di Bain disclosed an impartiality interest in item 14.1 as these are fees invoiced by the city's acting legal counsel. She is the cousin of her husband's son-in-law. Councillor Di Bain has disclosed a direct financial interest in item 11.1 as Malcolm Day donated...
Quiet please team, quiet please team. Very important, these announcements.
As Malcolm Day donated to her election campaign in 2020, and Councillor Di Bain has disclosed a direct financial interest in item 11.2 as Rod Hammersley, East Perth Girls' School, donated to her election campaign in 2020.
Thank you, CEO. I'm going to now invite any disclosures of interest from the floor.
Can I just clarify the disclosure of interest?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, Lord Mayor. Just with JB Legal, she is the cousin of my husband's son-in-law, not hers. And I'm disclosing it as an impartiality on the advice of the city.
Okay.
Can I also confirm that the city's position is that item 11.1, which is relates to the planning
Scheme number 2, yep, and planning scheme number 26, final adoption of Amendment 49 and Amendment 6.
Well done, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
And item 11.2, accelerating residential development, are not considered items that benefit the community as a whole. They are considered items that we as individuals need to declare.
I'm happy to seek some advice from
Is it
governors.
an interesting comment? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, Governance?
Through the chair, I'm not actually aware of how many residents or community members that would impact at this time. There would need to be a significant number for it to be considered an interest in common.
It would be, wouldn't it? Yes. Changes to the planning scheme, putting together some reimbursements of rates for residential planning, etc.
Yeah, and what I would suggest too, I mean, we had some advice, had some preliminary advice from governance. I'm sure we can get more considered advice as the week goes on before the ordinary council meeting. What I could suggest is, if in any doubt at all, declare, and then for the next council meeting, where the decision making takes place, remembering this is about questions here today, that might be the way to operate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, are there any other disclosures of interest from the floor? Councillor Angie.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I've just got a couple. The first one's in relation to 12.1 event sponsorship telethon, impartiality, interest. My husband, Michael Angie, and I are personally donors to telethon. Also, the company of which he's CEO, APM, is a donor to telethon, and we've attended several events in recent years. The next one is 12.1 event sponsorship, Perth International Jazz Festival. Again, impartiality. I attended 2 opening events for Perth International Jazz Festival where I spoke on behalf of the city, and subsequent to those events met with representatives of Perth International Jazz Festival over the last couple of years. Third one is item 12.1 again, event sponsorship, Part B, 7 Perth Christmas pageant. That one is an indirect financial interest via my husband, Michael Angie, CEO of APM. APM is a sponsor of the West Australian Leadership Matters breakfast. It's also a sponsor of the Alinta Christmas pageant, and they get a float, and they're also an advertising client. And finally, Perth Outdoor Living Festival, which is event sponsorship 12.1 item L, and that's impartiality again. The authorised agent of the applicant, Paul Nash, is known to me. I've met with him several times since 2021, and myself and another elected member have received email correspondence in recent weeks in relation to this year's event held from 4th to 7th of May.
Thank you, Councillor Angie. Are there any others from the floor? Nothing further? Okay, thank you. So we'll now move to, let me get my papers in order. We're now going to move to item 6, public participation. A reminder that public questions will be held at the ordinary council meeting next week. But as we move to deputations, where there'll be opportunity for members of the public to come forward, and we've received some notifications in advance, I'm just going to let elected members know, and everybody in the chamber, that as the deputations relate to item 12.1, event sponsorship 2023-2024, round 1, and I have declared a direct financial interest in items A and B, those relating to telethon and the Christmas pageant, the direct financial interest, because they are both intrinsically related to my principal employer, as disclosed, the direct financial interest. As they're not related to those two, I think it's appropriate for me to stay in the room for those deputations. Should there be any deputations about those, I would obviously leave the room. I'm also proposing that as we discuss that item tonight in the agenda under 12.1, that I will seek to discuss the items C through to M collectively together. Any questions, etc., around those? And if there are any items or issues or questions relating to A and B, the two that I've mentioned, telethon and Christmas pageant, at that point I will leave the room and ask the Deputy Lord Mayor to step forward. So for the purposes of clarity and full disclosure, hope that's clear with everybody. And if it's not, I'll go through it 1,000 times more if required. So with that, I'm now going to invite the CEO to tell us about what deputations we may be looking forward to receiving tonight.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We have received 2 deputations in relation to item 12.1, event sponsorship 23-24, round 1.
Thank you, CEO. So can I remind those that are coming forward for deputations, there is a 5-minute limit. I'm going to invite Mr. Mace Francis, who is representing the Perth International Jazz Festival, who's speaking for the officer's recommendation in item 12.1, event sponsorship 2023-2024, round 1, to please come forward. I'll just point out too, Mace, as you do make your way forward, that is reference C and not A and B, that particular item. So please come forward. 5 minutes, if you could give us your name and address, and then away you go. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Councillors, thank you for allowing this time. My name's Mace Francis from, on my address, Unit 394, Walcott Street in Mount Lawley. Firstly, there was a conflict of someone, a councillor who knows Rachel Davison. She's no longer involved with the Jazz Festival as of last year and this year. Sorry, just bringing up my notes. First, I just wanted to address, the council, just to thank everyone for the support over the years and the confidence in the festival. We're very proud of the festival reaching its 11th year this year. The recommendation of 3-year funding is incredible for the small team that we have. Very helpful for us to be able to plan ahead, booking venues, securing venues, production, and artists, and just alleviating a lot of the stress that goes into the applications, and helps us sort of create an even better event for this great city. There was some sort of questioning around the projected attendance numbers and some of the issues there. I saw in the notes. Yes, we did overestimate some attendance numbers last year. With our installation in Hay Street Mall, we sort of underestimated the flow through of that of the mall. But it should be noted that we increased our attendance numbers greatly from the 2021 festival, which we were very proud of. We think that our station sessions and Jazz Night Out events will increase our numbers again this year, and offering sort of a lot more free culture and arts to the general public. And while I'm here, if there are any questions, it would be great to, have a bit of dialogue, answer any questions that anyone has. And I'd also, it'd be remiss of me to, while I'm here, to ask for the council to reconsider the full amount that we requested, as that little extra over the 3 years really does make a huge difference for the very small team of 3 people that we have working on this huge event. So, thank you, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to address those.
Mace, thank you. Well done. Please stay there, and we may have some questions from fellow councillors. Can I just firstly take the opportunity to say I was given the opportunity to attend a number of the events, saw how good it was for the vibrancy and the liveliness of our city, and it was wonderful to have the event back after COVID, and it was my great pleasure to be able to represent the city of Perth at a number of events. Thoroughly enjoyed them, and it was a great vibe. I'm not sure that that's a technical council term, but I think it's a term that everybody understands, and so well done. I think you'll probably also see how many requests we get in this area, but we welcome them all. That's one of the reasons that we are here. Are there any further questions from any councillors? In fact, that wasn't a question, it was just a statement. Ramblings from the Lord Mayor. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for coming tonight and saying a few words about the festival. The 11 years that you've had it, has the City of Perth always sponsored the event?
Yes, it had. I think from the beginning, I believe so. Yes, the festival was run by a group of people for 5 years, and then there was, well, unfortunately, the festival director passed away, and then I've been there for the 6 years following. And yes, I think so from the beginning, and it's started. Yes, small. The sponsorship has grown over time.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions from any councillors? Councillor Angie.
Thanks, Mace, for coming in and the deputation. You said a little bit extra would help a lot. How would that little bit extra help you?
Well, we do a lot of free events for in the city, and the festival has grown from one weekend, a 3-day weekend, to we're now doing 4 weekends, in the city of Perth, and we also have a weekend down in the southwest. But yeah, expanding the program over the October leading into the November festival. It helps with booking artists. We've got about 300 artists that we employ, local artists. We have events all over the CBD. We're doing some more in West Perth and East Perth. It would just help us to make the festival the destination festival that we want it to be. People to travel here, and every bit helps.
Thanks, Mace. Can I confirm that the amount requested was $60,000, and that's correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, and the recommended amount that we can see in our papers is $50,000. So close, but not all the way there.
It's worth an ask.
Yeah. Mace, thank you. If there's no further questions, we'll thank you for your time. You're welcome to stay, but you don't have to stay, and we appreciate you being here, and please pass on our best to everybody associated with the Perth International Jazz Festival.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mace. Good on you. And our next deputation, I'm going to invite Mr. Alan Rogers, representing Nalomian, is it? How do you say that, actually? It's an interesting word.
Lord Mayor, it's Nalomian.
Nalomian.
My accountant can't speak it either, so.
Right. Nalomian Proprietary Limited, speaking for the officer's recommendation in item 12.1, event sponsorship 23-24, round 1, to come forward. Alan, if you can give us your name and address, and again, same procedure, 5 minutes will be yours.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, elected members. Thanks very much for your time. My name's Alan Rogers. I'm the director at Nalomian Proprietary Limited. I reside at 11 Lucan Avenue in Darlington. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you as I kindly ask your favourable consideration of our sponsorship request for the Perth Leisure Lifestyle Show 2024. We are obviously still very grateful for the opportunity to stage the inaugural event on Langley Park this January gone. So thank you very kindly for that. Obviously, we conducted the event management, and we ended up matching the city's support with our own cash contribution to ensure that we could present the very best possible inaugural event and obviously event outcomes for the city of Perth. So in that respect, we're really true partners in the delivery of the event. And I would also like to acknowledge the City of Perth staff who became quite involved in the delivery of the event, which really improved our processes and obviously had a great impact on the outcome of the event. And I'd like to maybe make a shout out to Jared Stringer in the event department, and also Jackie Kilty, who provided excellent expertise as we were going through the process. The January event just gone created an economic spin-off to the city of Perth of over $4 million, with 4,200 bed stays at a return on the investment of 5.9. Those figures were produced by a third-party organisation that we engaged to measure our social and economic impact of the event. There were a lot of learnings from the first event, as there always is. We plan on continuing to deliver a major naming rights signature event for the City of Perth that provides a commercial boost to the leisure lifestyle industries of WA, the food and crafted beverage industry of WA, and also provide a pathway for our up-and-coming talent that represents the multicultural society in which we live. The event had a 72% approval rating, and one of our exhibitors did $1.2 million in trade through their participation in the show over the 3 days. We hosted over 90 individual businesses across 2/3 of Langley Park, with the evening component hosting WA renowned acts such as Diesel, Draft, Eskimo Joe, Gyroscope, End of Fashion, Downside, and a whole raft of local up-and-coming support acts, which was a tremendous thrill for everybody involved. Our format will continue to be the 3 days and 3 nights, with a new and more preferable mid-January date. We're a lot more hopeful of achieving better outcomes. And we also have a number of potential partners looking to come on board, and one of those is a company called Red Country Management. It's an 100% Nirrapali owned company that presents and supports Indigenous performing talent from the Pilbara region. So we are really excited to be able to continue on with our work, and the prospect of being able to continue to build and establish an event in the heart of the City of Perth in partnership with the City of Perth. So thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alan. Stay there if you will, and there may be some questions from councillors. First one from me. The economic and social impact data that you mentioned towards the start, could you just recap that again?
Yes. So we did tick over $4 million in total economic activity in the city. There was 4,200 bed stays through the running of the event over the 3 days. We had 72% approval rating. I'll just go back and just have a quick flick and see if I've forgot any of those things. No, that appears to be about, and the return on investment is 5.9. So every dollar we injected, we were able to return 5.9.
Sure. I'm sure you'll understand me asking this, but how do we know that, and how do we verify those numbers?
So we ran QR codes and a research, like a market research paper that was handled by a third party called Culture Counts, and they specialise in this area. So they're a third party. We have often done those types of things on our own just to understand where we position, but we thought in this case it would be best to engage those people, and so they handled it all. All of the market research papers went through QR codes and direct mail to them. So I think the sample was over 330 in that department. So so that was, I mean, we always were hoping for more, but hopefully over time that will certainly be the case.
How many people do you reckon you got?
We got a tick over 20,000. We were hoping for 30, but the first up events of this size, it's difficult. So it's almost like trying to land a jumbo jet on a 20-cent piece.
Yeah.
The very early January dates possibly meant that we were off to a slight downfall in that our marketing kind of happened across the Christmas period. So after kind of debriefing with the city officers, we do have a position now to move to the middle of February, and we think that that'll be much more favourable for all concerned. We also had a lot of exhibitors that weren't able to be part and participate because they had staff on holidays through that period. Okay. We kind of went ahead bullishly because it was the only opportunity to use Langley Park, and we really wanted to do something loud and proud for those clients that work with us regularly.
Good, thank you, Alan. Are there any further questions from Councillor Angie first?
Thanks for your deputation. I just guess following on from Lord Mayor's question, in relation to the economic spin-off you noted of 4 million, so that 1.2 million in trade you also noted, was that inclusive in the 4 million, or was that 4 million spent in the city? How does that work?
Yeah, so the 1.2 was just one exhibitor, so that's not included in any of that. The exhibitor turnover, we don't make that our business, but often information is volunteered. So I thought I would share that just to share that we're obviously able to attract the target audience that works for that clientele, and that obviously underpins the success of the event. The rest of those figures, the 4 million turnover and all of the bed stays, all of that information came to us direct from Culture Counts, and that document was provided to the city.
So the 1.2 million is not part of that, the 4 million is additional? Yep.
No, correct.
Thanks, Councillor Angie. Or was there another question? No, thank you. Councillor Bain, then Councillor Fleeton.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on the success of the show. I just wondered, what is your corporate structure or the corporate ownership? Are you a not-for-profit or PTY Ltd? I can see you're a trust. That's good.
Is that microphone on? Can you just check there?
I think it's.
There we go. Beautiful.
Yes, we're a professional event management company. We're a West Australian company. We're based here in Perth, and we've been up and running since 2009. And prior to that, I've been working in the event industry since, I hate to say, probably 1996.
So is the intention of the event to turn a profit? Is that
The intention of
it's not a problem with turning a profit?
Yeah, look, we're not for profit, but we do see the value in what we do. We're not looking to squeeze a stone, if you know what I mean. We're looking to obviously we're a commercial enterprise and we do have to pay the bills, and we're always the last man standing. But we are looking to provide pathways and assist where possible, but also make it a viable event over time. We hope to be able to have the event run pretty much on its own. So at this early stage, we really appreciate the support of the city.
Okay, so sorry, you are a not-for-profit or are you a commercial organisation?
We are a PTY Ltd commercial enterprise.
Okay, and just one final question. The heads in beds, as they say, congratulations on that number. Do you think many of them were out of state, or would you say most of them came from regional areas into the metro area?
A number of our exhibitorship do come from interstate. We work with them around the country on similar types of sister events, but we do believe that a lot of the people that would have travelled from regional areas to attend the event, whereas the exhibitorship would probably be in the lower numbers in comparison.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bunch. Just before Councillor Fleeton, it's a charge to get in, I assume, to the show?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know what the ticket prices were?
The ticket prices are sub $20, so it ranges. There's a number of offerings on. We basically look to attract families. We run a lot of kids shows. We had Bluey there, for instance. Flying motorbikes, there was show rides. There's a lot of those types of attractions, if you like, to make it attractive to families. But obviously, it's quite a broad demographic that we look to attract. So when we go marketing, we often go for the 20 to 65 plus, because that entire demographic is our market for our event. And obviously the evening events attracts another demographic altogether. So really what we're trying to do is stimulate the CBD by providing an opportunity for almost every sector of the community to find a reason to be part or attend the event.
Thank you. Councillor Fleeton's been waiting patiently.
Always patient, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Thanks for your deputation. So just making sure you've seen the agenda, because you've asked for 1:30 and you're saying that you're speaking for the officer's recommendation, which is down to 50.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. What do your exhibitors? You don't have to answer this, but I'm just trying to work out the structure. Vendors pay you a set fee to set up there, or is it a percentage of how much they make? Or
Look, there is a sliding scale depending on how that works. We take on a lot of not-for-profits for no cost. There are some that will pay for fees, and that basically we assist them by helping them brand when we go to market. So we try and share the load across all of the opportunities. So that's our patronage and our exhibitorship, to then offer and provide the infrastructure, which would include stages and those types of things for performers, and pay for those performers. So it's a bit of a balancing act, but it's the best way that we know how over the years of trying to get it to this point. And I suppose really the Perth Leisure Lifestyle Show is the culmination of 20 years of kind of heading in this direction. So we are super grateful for the opportunity.
Sure, just a few follow-ups, Lord Mayor. So in our agenda pack, I'm not too sure if you've seen some commentary from the assessment panel. It's talking about, it was stated that 20 businesses would be engaged. However, the applicant did not provide any details of that. Have you got anything just to bolster that part of it? How are our businesses going to benefit?
Is this CBD businesses?
Any City of Perth
So
businesses?
we worked with a number of the hotels, and we provided online and website links to their accommodation packages to try and encourage especially regional patrons to stay in the CBD. So we did outline a lot of that detail with those businesses. We looked for every local business possible where we could engage for the staging of the event. So I suppose that was probably the most powerful out of our offering, was those accommodations, and there was 5 of the large hotels on Terrace Road that we were able to work with closely. We also we were aiming to do some research with other cafes and other businesses like that in the region, but the consultation process with the Culture Counts, we decided to narrow that down so that they could provide the detail with the accuracy that they intended and what they did.
Thank you. Last question, Lord Mayor. So just clarifying this 50,000, you're still able to go ahead on your modelling for the next event, 50,000 from us, we can still proceed?
Well, that's our intention, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fleet, and thank you, councillors. Any further questions from any councillors? Alan, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And thanks for bringing your event to the city, and hopefully we see you again. And thank you also to Mace, representing the Perth International Jazz Festival. Good on you both. Thank you very much. It's worth noting too that our council papers, which are available online to everybody, do detail the number of requests that have come in the event sponsorship 2023-2024. And it's well worth a read to have a look at how many people are asking for support, the amounts of money that the administration are recommending. Of course, decisions to be made at council next week. But we do get a lot of requests, and as you can see, just a broad comment. The endeavour of the city is to be very supportive of those conducting and holding events within the city of Perth. And that is, again, available online. So please, at the City of Perth website, take the opportunity if you wish. Thank you. No further deputation. So 7, 8, 9, 10 will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting next week, which takes us to 11, Planning and Economic Development Alliance reports. 11.1 is City Planning Scheme number 2 and Local Planning Scheme number 26, final adoption of Amendment 49 and Amendment 6. Do we have... Councillor Bain? Councillor Bain is going to... Well, actually, are there any questions on this item before you go, Councillor Bain? I've saved you the trip. Thank you, councillors. So we'll go to item 11.2, Accelerating Residential Development in the City of Perth. A number of questions were received by some of our councillors. So firstly, are there any follow-up questions on this item? Councillor Fleeton.
Thanks.
You are now going to leave, Councillor Bain. Thank you.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. So page 4 of our handout, question 4, was about new measures which would make it easier to convert existing stock to residential. So the answer talks about business as usual being excluded. I appreciate that's what we've discussed at the EMES. How far away are we realistically from scheme number 3 being in force and people able to use measures included in that?
Thank you. CEO?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Could I direct that question through you to Dale Page, General Manager, Planning and Economic Development?
Thank you, through you, Lord Mayor. Our current program is to present a draft scheme document to elected members early next year. Once council has endorsed that as a draft, it goes into the state approval system, which we can't control, but we're expecting that that should take anything between another 12 or slightly more months.
Thanks. Can I just a follow up?
Sure.
So number 4, to the GM, if we pulled out this conversion from office, commercial or retail stock to resi as an initiative included in this document, would that be problematic? Would that be possible, or are you set? I don't want to amend anything if you're not going to do it.
Yeah, with the CEO's okay, back to the GM, Planning and Economic Development.
Through you, Lord Mayor, so we could certainly list it as an initiative to explore. When we did the previous C-grade office case study, it did show that converting some of those offices are a little problematic. Now, I do believe that a university at the moment is investigating that as a case study, and I know that there are a couple of other bods that are looking at that as well. So it's not something we'd be able to deliver, but if that was an initiative that you'd like us to explore with strong focus, then we can certainly include it as one of the shortlisted initiatives.
But it wouldn't be deliverable in the time frame of this document, so there's no point doing it.
GM?
Through you, Lord Mayor, yes, it would need to be implemented through this scheme. So in terms of the outcome, it would take a while.
Jim, through the CEO, if it's okay, a question from me about the focus here of this body of work appears to be the CBD core and doesn't appear to extend beyond the Perth Central Railway Station into Northbridge. Have I got that right? Was that the intention?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I think the original notice of motion that led to this report talked about the Central Perth area specifically, so that has been our area of focus. Notwithstanding that, there are initiatives that would be transferable, but our first tranche, I guess, is the CBD area.
So, for some clarity, obviously I'm familiar with it, but I can't recall it off the top of my head right now, but was it specific about CBD and not into Northbridge? Because I must admit, in my mind, in the framing of it, I did think that we would probably be going into the Northbridge corridor, at least.
So, Lord Mayor, yeah, we respond. The notice of motion specifically said Central Perth. In terms of Northbridge, we certainly would be looking at incentivising certain residential uses. We just need to be a bit careful, given Amendment 41, in trying to find the balance between the entertainment industry in that precinct and encouraging residential development, but in a balanced way. So I think that's why our focus is Central Perth.
Yeah, okay. Just on that quickly, or briefly rather, but so I don't know about other elected members. I refer to what we have here as the CBD. Is Central Perth, whose lingo is that?
So that's one of our neighbourhoods. It's one of the 6 neighbourhoods in Central Perth, and the notice of motion specified Central Perth. So that's where we've looked at primarily.
Okay, all right, understood. Any questions from any other councillors?
It's a different matter, but same.
Sure.
Same
Yeah,
pack.
of course.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think it's page 7. I think it's still under the same agenda item. I think I've lodged about 1 million questions, so apologies.
Sorry, this is Councillor Fleet. This is page 7 of the
Page 7 of our
questions
answer book.
register.
Yeah, our answer book.
Yeah.
So it's question 10 on page 7. Regarding buyers or submitting bids, the answer is saying any off-market approach will typically include discussions. I just wanted to check, how can we make it easier to facilitate access to our information that we've got of ratepayer-owned properties? Is there any way that we can put this information online to give access to people?
Through the General Manager.
If I may,
sorry,
Lord Mayor, if we could invite the General Manager Commercial Services, I think might be able to assist in this response.
Thank you.
Thank you, through the Lord Mayor. Some of the challenges that we have, we put all of our property, land and property, on a general website. We could get inundated with unsolicited bids. We currently don't have an unsolicited bid policy. So, for example, we can't follow something like the state had, which has the market-led proposal. We're under the Local Government Act, and it's a very different implications of trying to address or endorse a unsolicited bid process.
Just a follow-up. So the answer here states any off-market approach typically includes initial discussions with the properties unit, which may lead to the development of a term sheet and the usual process. Is the answer you don't want to put it online because you don't want bids? Is that why?
Through to the GM.
Through you, Lord Mayor. It's probably a combination of both. One, we potentially become inundated and unable to process a high volume of inquiries So that's the first thing. Another one is, as I say, we don't have an official unsolicited bid process to follow. However, where we do get an inquiry, which we have in the past, we obviously do take that inquiry seriously. We follow a process of initial discussions, and then that may lead on to a general proposal, term sheet, lease proposal, etc.
To follow up, Lord Mayor, please. So it's my recollection the policy that the city then changed recently, which we approved, it did have an unsolicited bid process in it. That's now been taken out. Does that mean we can't facilitate any transaction that's not initiated by us?
Through to the GM.
Through you, Lord Mayor. Well, it's technically it has to follow anything set out in the Local Government Act, which means there's certain things that we have to follow. One of them, the potential is that you can invite an applicant and follow them or allow them to follow a process which gets to a point of having to advertise the whole of the deal. So that is one opportunity. But as I say, it doesn't strictly follow a traditional unsolicited bid or market-led proposal.
Yep, that's it. Councillor Pheaton? Yes? Councillor Gordon?
So what is our plan to develop a process which we can utilise for unsolicited bids?
Thank you, CEO. Through to the GM. Thank you.
Through you, Lord Mayor. We're actually addressing that at the moment. As I say, the legal advice that we've now received, because we're midway trying to develop a policy, puts certain restrictions around what we can and can't do in terms of developing a policy. I think you'll find that other local governments don't have one either, for that very reason, that the Local Government Act actually restricts what we can and can't do. As I say, if you look at what the state, which has been quite successful in a market-led proposal, we can't adopt anything similar.
So having been previously at a council that did have an unsolicited bid,
Process?
well, no,
I had one.
had an
Yes,
unsolicited
okay.
bid that then went through a process. I mean, it did go through that process, and it was basically a reverse tender where instead of putting to market and getting quotes, you got a quote and put that to the market. So is there a reason we can't adopt that, which I think is set out in the Local Government Act or the regs?
General Manager.
Absolutely, you can follow that process. So you could set up some criteria, but I think you've got to be more intentional. So this is, I suppose, what you're talking about there is being more intentional than just receiving an unsolicited bid and then going through an exclusive period or an exclusive process with that proponent and then taking it right through to conclusion. We're unable to do that under the Local Government Act. It is certainly not the same as say, other state departments or other state governments where they can take the whole proposal right through to completion.
And a separate question, which was a follow-up to my earlier one, the officer's recommendation has a matter to receive, matter to endorse, and matter to agree. So I'm just looking to understand, like, what is the implication of each of these words? Do we use them consistently in recommendations? Do we have a guide for administration to understand what they are putting to council and a guide for council to understand what they're actually supporting?
Okay, to Manager of Governance.
Through you, Lord Mayor. We don't currently have a comprehensive guide on what wording we will use. We are in the process of developing one so that all of the reports coming to council are consistent in their wording.
So for current purposes, would agree just essentially be endorse? Or is there some distinguishment there?
To you, Lord Mayor, yes. Correct.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Angie, did you have a question?
Thanks. Yeah, I had a couple of questions. Just in relation to the rates reimbursement, it says in the explanation summary that it is in relation to purchases of new residential dwellings approved after 1 July, but then it talks about a financial impact during 2023-24 financial year. So if the development's approved, obviously it takes a while to construct, so I'd imagine the impact is not till a future year. Can I just have an explanation on that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. CEO, through to the General Manager of Planning and Economic Development.
Thank you.
Through you, Lord Mayor, Councillor Andrew, you're correct. So, given there will need to be a flow through, the full impact of our rates reimbursement will not be felt in the first year, and likely very little in the second year. It would only be in the out years that would be felt.
And just to clarify, if I can, before Councillor Angie follows up with other questions, that's why the amount is relatively small in the first year, correct?
Correct, Lord Mayor.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Angie?
Oh, perhaps if that could then be clarified on page 22, because it just, adds confusion. And also, is there a planned number of years that the rates rebate or reimbursement will apply for? Has that been set? Because that's not in the
Sure.
summary.
Councillor Angie, firstly, just what, when you're referencing page 22, can you just give us a bit, is that of the,
Sorry, page 41 and 42. Sorry, I said that was page 42, where it talks about the notional cost of implementation being 200,000 in lost revenue in 23-24. So that was at paragraph 22, page 42. It talks about the financial implications in 23-24. So
yes.
I
Yeah.
wasn't sure where that financial implication came from. And then at paragraph 14, where it describes the criteria or parameters, I was just wondering, is there a number of years set for the rates reimbursement? How many years is it anticipated that would go on for? Is that ongoing or?
Yeah. So through the General Manager? Yeah.
Through you, Lord Mayor, I can clarify that in the notes following the meeting. I do believe it is a set number of years. I think from my recollection is 3. It is open to council to extend that if you need to or want to extend that.
I wonder, CEO, if it's okay, can we ask the Chief Financial Officer if he can recall that? If you can't, no problem, we'll follow it up. But he's very good with numbers, this bloke, very good.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, the 3-year term was what had been discussed when this proposal was put together.
Okay, thank you.
Could that also be added to the explanation? Because that's, I guess, quite critical information, if that could be added to that paragraph 14, and then perhaps the estimated impact in the forward years as well.
Sure. CEO?
Sorry, final question. Yep. Just in relation to the report that was prepared, was that prepared internally or by a consultant?
GM?
Through you, Lord Mayor, that was prepared internally but in consultation with industry bodies and other local governments.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Gordon, I see, has her hand back up.
I did, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I was just wondering if any consideration has been given to how you actually utilise the rate concession over 3 years when the development may not occur in line with rating periods, so you end up with people on half-year cycles, and then do you give them credit the next year? Like, obviously it doesn't need to be resolved for this, but have we started to think about whether this is actually achievable?
To the CFO, I think, for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, through the chair. Yes, the logistics of this are obviously a critical consideration. One of the reasons why the proposal actually specifies a reimbursement as opposed to a rate directly is precisely the situation that the councillor has just described, where things cross multiple financial years. That's why we adopted the reimbursement approach rather than a straight rebate.
I wonder, CEO, through you, whether might be able to ask the CFO, whether that perhaps we look at is 5 years a better period in this market, to the CFO?
Thank you.
From a budget
through the chair, perhaps I might refer this one back to the GM Planning and Economic Development, if I may.
Through you, Lord Mayor, certainly you'll get more impact if you look at 5 years, and you'll definitely get more flow through some of these bigger developments. The smaller developments is where you'll see reimbursements in the short term. If you look at targeting and incentivising some of the bigger developments, then obviously the longer you go for, the more impact you will see. The issue you need to contemplate, though, is the longer that you say you will do it for, the bigger the potential financial liability to the city is. Whereas if you cap it for 3 years for now and you do a review of that through the process, it's always open to you to extend it. But if you make it 5 years from now, you could be setting the city up for a big financial commitment.
Okay, thank you, both of you. Yes, Councillor Angie.
Could we also have for next week the average benefit per dwelling of an apartment in the rates concession, so what the savings would be?
General Manager, which of the
Through you, Lord Mayor, we could look at whether that modelling is possible. I doubt it'll be ready in time for Council's decision next week. And I think there are quite a few variables on that, depending on location, depending on scale, depending on size of unit and specifications, I guess. I can confirm that following this meeting, whether we'd be able to do that, but I can't commit to that.
Yeah, just an example perhaps. Obviously, we levy rates each year, so, you know, if people don't know how much, you know, rates they pay an apartment in the city, if we could give an example of, you know, an average rate or an example rate, and then what the concession would mean to that that new resident of the city. I guess that contextualises it. Otherwise, it's difficult for people to understand how much this actually means.
Yeah.
Thank you. Through the chair, councillors will recall that when we had our most recent rates discussion, we did actually provide a table of some typical like apartment or unit type properties and what the rates were. So we could extrapolate from that, just give you some monetary examples. It would be a small sample, though. It won't be a full-scale effort.
Thank you, that would be perfect.
Thank you. Thanks, CFO. Thanks, Councillor Angie. I wonder if I could ask then, while we are looking at this, whether we might be able to ask for 5-year modelling, given the discussion. I know we're at 3 years now, but just for consideration purposes, I'm not sure how difficult that would be to achieve.
Lord Mayor, we can see whether or not that's possible. We did do some of this work that was issued to elected members earlier this year in April.
Yes.
I'll go back and dig some of that out and see whether or not any of that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you, General Manager, and thank you, CFO. Are there any further questions?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. As I was listening, so back to my line of questioning, is there any requirement under the Act or regs that requires us to keep a publicly available document of all the land that we own?
CEO.
If I could ask the General Manager, Commercial Services.
Through the Lord Mayor, I can take this on notice, but not that I'm aware of. But we can come back and confirm.
Thank you. Any further questions, everybody? Yes, Councillor Angie.
Sorry for being a pain, but why is it that only build to rent?
Not painful at all, Councillor Angie.
Build to rent and co-living are required to reach 5-star Green Star and not purchases?
Through to the General Manager of Planning and Economic Development.
I guess that's a separate issue, and we're looking at that through incentivising stuff through the scheme, Lord Mayor. So very recently elected members were presented with some incentives on ESD in normal residential development. So I think we're separating out the two in that way.
Nothing further. We'll go to 11.3, Draft Urban Greening Strategy. We'll invite Councillor Bain back in. That glass is soundproof. You cannot hear a thing out there. So 11.3, Draft Urban Greening Strategy. A couple of councillors have provided some questions with notice. Any follow-ups? Councillor Fleeton.
Just clarifying page 8 of our handout with the answers. Am I reading this correctly that we've spent 249,000 on plantings that have failed. So we've planted it, we've pulled them out because of vandals, and then we've replanted.
CEO.
Could I invite the General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations to respond, please?
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, that is correct, but it's not just vandalism, it's trees that have died or been taken out by a car. That's the total amount.
Thank you. Any further questions? It's worth commenting. I mean, some of the vandalism that you see to the trees, I mean, you do think, like, what is wrong with people? Actually, what is wrong with people? I mean, walking past trees that have been planted, they're there for a reason, clearly. Trying to increase our tree canopy, not to mention shade, look after our city, provide for future generations. And morons want to walk past trees and snap them in half. Something wrong with those people. Absolutely. And for the city to have to spend and spend and spend again after planting, I mean, I think of King Street, many of you will be aware of this. The good people of King Street and the outstanding people of the City of Perth Parks and Gardens team who work so diligently to provide a greener city for us and have to deal with morons who break trees in half should get their heads read.
Is there a question in there, or no? I'm joking.
As you told me once, Councillor Fleeton, my meeting, my microphone.
Yeah. Just a follow-up. So the overall budget for trees that we're planning, it looks like it's going backwards next year. We're spending 50,000 less. Is that correct?
CEO? Through to the GM.
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. It went forwards this year in the sense that we had a May tree planting day. So the budget that we had set for next financial year was based on the budget of this financial year, which has increased somewhat. So it's gone over budget this year.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I have a question, Lord
Certainly,
Mayor.
Councillor Bain.
Just following on from your comments, actually, do we ever catch these people on CCTV that are chopping down our trees?
CEO.
I'll need to take that one on notice. I doubt very much that we do, but I'll get back to you.
Follow up. What's the fine? Like, what would we do if we found them?
Yeah, well, not our. I mean, we don't do the catching, do we? I mean, we may be able to provide the CCTV, you know, and this is to the point, isn't it? I mean, on the scale of things that we ask the police in our city to protect us from and keep us safe from, I mean, we do appreciate that going back and watching CCTV to see which idiot came out of wherever and snapped a tree in half is probably low on the list of priorities. But from time to time, maybe they do, and maybe we can find that out. I just want to add one more comment to my earlier comments. We don't give in, though. And actually, one of the choices for our city to make would be, oh, well, it's too hard. It's too hard. We've tried planting trees, but people keep breaking them in half. But I'm very, very proud of the city that we continue our efforts and continue to find ways to make them harder for the morons to do what they do. And we should be very proud of those efforts, General Manager and others. And please pass on our thanks to the team for their great commitment to greening our city. It is much appreciated by everyone in the city. Right, I think I'll finish now. Okay, 11.3 done and dusted. Let's go to 12. This is the Community Development Alliance reports. And as I've mentioned, 12.1 event sponsorships 2023-2024. If there are any questions in regards, thank you to those members of the gallery leaving. If there are any questions in regards to A and B, where I have declared a direct financial interest, I'll ask you to save those until the end, and I'll leave the chair and allow the Deputy Lord Mayor to come and preside. But in the meantime, reference C through to M and the events that correspond to those references. Any discussion on those? Councillors Angie, Fleeton, myself and Councillor Gordon have provided some questions. Any follow-ups? If they are for A and B, please hold them.
No, so just on page 14, Lord Mayor, it's about the NAIDOC event. Just a question. The panel seem to be pretty keen on this parachute display. They haven't got approval yet. Does our process change if their event structure changes? Do they need to come back and resubmit saying it's different to what we asked for and had money approved on?
CEO?
Through to the General Manager, Community Development, please.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor. Yes, changes, even changes of venue, come back through to us for discussion and sign off. Thank you.
Questions? Councillor Gordon.
We had some pretty compelling information provided by Mr. Rogers earlier regarding the return on investment for the leisure, what is it, Perth Leisure Lifestyle Show. So is that culture count survey results provided in their application? Do we ask for that kind of information so that consideration can be given to what they're delivering?
CEO to the General Manager of Community Development.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor. Yes, we do reference it in the item, and that the third party culture count survey is referred to. So in instances where we get an external advice and assessment, we do generally refer to that. And on occasions where we haven't got that and we'd like to see that, we also include that.
Can I just jump in and ask, so do the other events also provide that, or do they do that work? Do we know?
Through the Lord Mayor, on some occasions they do, and on others they don't. Certainly our advice is that, particularly for those who are seeking large sums in terms of the tiers that are available, that our preference is to get that external advice that helps us make the assessment.
Councillor Fleet and then Councillor Bain.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. So just on Anzac Day, I think they've applied for a 3-year deal, and we're saying no just for one based on sustainability measures. Are we going to say no to them next year if they apply for the same amount and only provide 5?
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor. Sorry, I jumped in there, sorry.
No, fine.
Through the Lord Mayor. The assessment for next year will be dependent on what they submit. The decision for council, the recommendation is for 1 year. The decision on that is for council.
Can I foreshadow now that we just do the 3-year deal rather than coming back year after year? We're going to approve Anzac Day. We're not going to say no based on this, are we? So
well, it's a decision for council, Councillor Fleet, as you know. Yeah. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just popping back over to the Perth Leisure Lifestyle Show again. I just wanted to clarify with the administration, we're offering $50,000 cash, not in-kind support.
Through to the General Manager.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor. Our approach is to make a cash contribution. This allows flexibility for arrangements that might relate to fees and in-kind support. So that money, some of it is that may relate back to fees or in-kind support, is noted in the item. So if someone has put through in their submission, there's a level of in-kind and fee allocations that is put in the item, but the cash contribution is very clear in terms of the level of support.
Sorry, so we're giving them $50,000 cash, but the $30,000 of in-kind that they requested is denied.
So what happens is, through the Lord Mayor, the $50,000 is provided. At this point in time, it's estimated that the in-kind fees would be around $30,000. We won't know that until the final decisions of some of the arrangements. So this allows flexibility for what level of fee elements are in there. So certainly it's the $50,000 cash, of which at this point in time the applicant's estimating $30,000 would be returned in the way of fees and other in kind.
CEO, through you, if it's okay, to the General Manager. In kind is sometimes difficult to comprehend. What is in kind?
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor. In kind, we can certainly provide further information on some of the elements. So some of the in-kind fees that we provide support for events might be in regards to parking or waste management. So we can provide more detail on some of the elements and components for each of the events, if you like.
Okay. Can I, look, I know we're not always comparing apples with apples here. Absolutely appreciate that. A lot of these events are very different in their nature and different in their location throughout the city of Perth. But, for example, the Perth Leisure and Lifestyle Show, which we've heard a deputation on today, and K, the Perth Garden and Outdoor Living Centre. They're both on Langley Park. We're proposing that they both receive $50,000 cash. One has told us that their attendance last year was 25,000. And the other, actually, I think they said 20,000 today in the deputation. They were hoping for 30. And the other is telling us that they got 52,000. So that looking at that on this, just on the piece of paper like that, you go, okay, both on Langley Park, both those sort of big outdoor Langley Park style events. One got 52,000, one got 20,000. We're hearing today they're both getting 50,000. Is there a reason why they both get the same amount? Or perhaps my question is, might you be able to give us a little more of the rationale that helps reach that conclusion from the admin?
Certainly, Lord Mayor, we can provide you some more details. I will note that there is specific commentary around both of them. For example, the Lifestyle Festival, it is noted the extensive branding signage that was attributed to City of Perth is an example that has been highlighted in comparison, and also other comments in regards to the level of information provided in the submissions. So as much as possible, we've tried to provide clarity of some of the elements that have contributed to that assessment, but I can provide you some more detail further to the meeting for next week.
Councillor Angie?
Just to follow on, I guess, from the Lord Mayor's question, because I also see, in relation to one of the questions that I asked, that the city raised total parking revenue of $32,000 in relation to the garden show. So in the end, it only cost the city $20,000 in sponsorship. So is that parking revenue that the city is going to raise from an event considered in relation to the amount of sponsorship awarded?
CEO? Through to the GM? Yep.
Through the Lord Mayor. On this occasion, the use of Langley Park was used for that event, so we were able to clarify what the revenue was for parking, noting that there's some costs that will need to be mitigated in terms of remediation for that lawn. For other events, it is more difficult to actually work out what the revenue is that we attain through parking, because generally people go to our existing parking, so we can't as easily extrapolate that information.
Is the parking that exists for some of these events on Langley Park, is that paid parking that the City of Perth is charging for?
Through the Lord Mayor, the General Manager Commercial may be able to add more, but certainly in terms of our parking legislation and requirements, it is paid parking on that reserve as far as I'm aware.
Anything to add, Chair? Are there any implications re the Perth parking levy on that sort of parking? No, like, are we... Yeah.
Through to the GM Commercial, but my understanding is it's deemed a pop-up parking arrangement. I'm not certain if the levy would apply in those temporary circumstances. If the GM could answer more comprehensively, that would be appreciated.
I think you answered that very well, CEO. That's exactly the case. There is no Perth parking levy that is applicable because it is only a temporary arrangement. If we wanted to make it a more permanent arrangement, which I don't think we could do on Langley Park, but notwithstanding that, then the Perth parking levy would apply.
Thank you. If I can see through to the GM again. So just returning to the in-kind, you might argue that our community might think it doesn't seem that sensible, given that we might award a cash component, but then charge them for what they'd otherwise asked for in kind. Is there any consideration given to that process and how that does appear to our community?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for that question. Certainly over the last year, we provided the information as a cash contribution and noted where the estimate was for in-kind. In previous years, we have gone through, and in some programs we use in-kind, specifically in, say, a cash component of X and in-kind of this. So it has been, particularly for the event program where we've got $1 million,
available, it is much cleaner for us to say this is the cash contribution that we will support. If we go into cash and in kind, that value can change. It might be reduced, and then we're working through what our budget is at the very last minute. Because people's arrangements for events can change, and the fees for those can be altered through some of the decisions that don't happen till sometimes the very last moment. So it's certainly easier for us to manage the budget for the event sponsorship round, and the $1 million in terms of saying the components are cash, and then the arrangements can be worked through right up to the moment of the event.
Any questions from any further questions? Sorry, yeah, Councillor Angie.
I guess just a continuation on from my previous question in relation to 32,000 in parking, because I guess that's quite different to people just parking anywhere. That's actually set up at the event. Did any of these other events listed have parking set up at the event of that nature where you raised 32,000?
Would you like to go, CEO?
The General Manager Community Development might be aware, otherwise if we could invite the General Manager Commercial.
I don't believe so, but if I can confirm that and take that on notice, please.
Yeah.
So can I ask one more question?
Sure.
The question that I asked, and there's answers here in relation to the sponsorship benefits of the city. Is this a new thing? Like, it seems to me, there's quite a big focus on, I guess, promoting City of Perth, the local government institution, whereas I thought the idea is to promote Perth City, the place, and get people here, but it seems to carry quite a significant weighting in these sponsorships of promoting the local government institution.
CEO, through to the GM.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord, through the Lord Mayor. Certainly in previous years that may not have been a key focus, so certainly in terms of allocation of sponsorships. In terms of moving forward and trying to promote the city and enhancing it as a event capital, we have been strengthening the expectation that we want to see alignment of ratepayer funds being used for events and enhance the branding for the City of Perth, City of Light. Thank you.
CEO, to you, to the team, not sure who is part of the process of deciding, but can I ask the team, do you feel like it is an easy process or is it difficult? The parameters that you are required to operate in, is that an easy process? Could it be streamlined? Are you satisfied that the process is adequate for what we need in 2023 and beyond?
I'll actually throw to the General Manager shortly, but it's fair to say that the inquiry into the City of Perth did identify this area, grants and sponsorship, as an area of vulnerability, and we have, as a consequence, over the last couple of years, audited our process, which is obviously delivering results. As far as is it an easy process, I'll leave that to the General Manager to comment.
Through the Lord Mayor, certainly in terms of being a process where we try and get clarity of the steps that the assessment panel consider. We've enhanced criteria, so it's very clear. That's been a change that happened in the last year. And the process, as the CEO has mentioned, has been audited on 2 occasions since the inquiry. And we've used that to further strengthen the way that we do it. We also use external parties for the assessment. So we use Lottery West and the Department of Local Government, for example, or independent parties such as we did with this program to continually try and strengthen it. So the feedback at the moment is certainly that we have a strong, robust system, and we're very pleased that it's moved from the period when the inquiry assessed it. And we continue to look at other ways to further enhance it. But it is a space where certainly judgments are required, and that's why it's important that Council have the final determination.
Just one last question before I saw Councillor Fleeton with his hand up. So as it stands, it would appear that people ask for contributions, and I'm not certain if any received the full amount that they ask, but it seems as though most of the applicants get a percentage of what they may have asked, but not 100% of what they have asked. Is part of this process from those who make the recommendations that come to council, let's try and satisfy as many as we can, or are they each treated on their individual merits? Notwithstanding, there is not an endless bucket of money. We all understand that. So at some point, the money's going to run out.
Through the Lord Mayor, certainly it's about the panel discussing what is an appropriate investment based on the information in the application. So we acknowledge what the budget is, and obviously even in this round one, we had a request that exceeded the whole 2 rounds worth of budget. So we always knew that would be challenging. But the assessment is very much what is the deemed recommended appropriate level of investment by the city, and that's really the determination of the panel that is provided to council for consideration.
Does the score result in the amount?
No, Lord Mayor, it doesn't, through you. The percentage doesn't relate to a certain value, so the percentage helps us understand how strong the application is, how strong the event request is. But as I said, and as we've responded in the answers, it is really looking at all the information, whether that's economic impact or visitation or any of the criteria, and then assessing what is deemed by the assessment panel to be the appropriate level of investment for the ratepayer fund. And that is the determination and recommendation that's put forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fleeton.
Thanks. So on page 107 of the agenda in the discussion item, a 3-person panel consisting of 1 external rep and 2 officers. And just referencing an answer you gave a moment ago, you said there might be someone from Lottery West or DLG. How do you make the determination on who that external member is?
CEO, is that through to the General Manager?
Through the Lord Mayor, we put that up to the CEO in terms of our proposed assessment panels. We also liaise with the agencies. Sometimes it's not appropriate in terms of their workloads, but we're constantly talking to other agencies and opportunities, but the determination is put through for the CEO for final say.
And a follow-up, Lord Mayor, the person on the panel, whoever it might be, if it's a new person, do they have to go through a conflict of interest check? They declare if there's an interest, is there a register kept in your office, or where might it be?
CEO.
I can say that our code of conduct requires declarations in relation to all areas, but more specifically as far as this process is concerned, if I could invite the General Manager to respond, please.
Through the Lord Mayor, certainly in terms of the assessment process, we have had that audited of how we declare any conflicts of interest, and that is part of the assessment process and record keeping.
That extends to the external person that's not a member of the City of Perth?
Certainly, through the Lord Mayor, yes, that's correct. Everyone who's involved in the assessment.
And final question, if there's an applicant that's approached the city at various stages through where they might have made it to a certain milestone in here but hasn't gone the whole way, is there a record of that kept and reasons why they might not have proceeded?
CEO, through to the GM. Yep.
Through the Lord Mayor, can you just clarify that question? So are you meaning they start a sponsorship application process and then...
My mic back, thank you. So if I lodge an application but don't complete it, and I've found a milestone that's too difficult or I haven't been able to complete it, is there a register of ideas, if you like, that have been brought to us that might not have made it through the whole way?
Through the Lord Mayor, certainly in terms of if you're saying that someone hasn't had the full acquittal processed for a range of reasons, whether that's, I know we had a number where they were COVID related, for example, yes, we do keep a register and the information, and that is part of the audit trail as well.
Follow up, Lord Mayor. So the Lord Mayor had a question on feedback, and the city gave its feedback saying the process is amazing. I'd be surprised if the city said it wasn't amazing. Where's the feedback from applicants or people that might not have been approved?
If I could just add, I think that's a very challenging space, but maybe the General Manager has a more specific answer.
No, I think through the Lord Mayor, I think we certainly did a number of stakeholder engagement sessions when we were redesigning the sponsorship programs for the guidelines and the criteria. I will get back and check in terms of any further surveying or assessment that has occurred in the last 2 years as well.
Councillor Bevan.
Through you, Lord Mayor, I noticed that they've made a request for 130,000 for the Perth Leisure and Lifestyle Show. So they've asked for 130,000. They've got 50, and they can still go ahead. Do we feel that sometimes these claims are ambit claims?
Yeah, and just on that, I think the gentleman that came in and gave the deputation tonight, who's not here now, I don't believe, seemed happy with what had been recommended.
There seems to be a big difference between 130 and 50.
But did note that the crowd wasn't what it was going to be perhaps last year. CEO, through to the GM.
Sorry, if you can just give me exactly what you would like me to respond to.
Do we feel that some of the claims for money they're asking for are ambit claims, knowing they're going to get a smaller amount, and the bigger they ask, the percentages might come out better for them?
Oh, who would do that?
Through the Lord Mayor, we do ask for detailed budget submissions and components, and we go back and ask questions where we feel we want to understand more. So that's certainly part of the assessment process.
Councillor Angie. Oh, sorry, Councillor Fleeton. Did you? Councillor Bevan, did you have another question? No. Councillor Angie.
Was there budget remaining from the major events budget where we didn't get any applications for?
CEO. GM.
Through to the GM, please.
Through the Lord Mayor, yes, that budget has not been fully expended for major events.
So what's the balance of that budget remaining?
I will need to take that on notice and give you the final figure. Sorry.
Was there any consideration given to using some of that budget, for example, for events that could, I guess, grow into becoming bigger events?
Through the Lord Mayor, we do try and keep to the program that has been set in consultation with elected members and through the council budget. So no, we try and work within the parameters of the program and the criteria and guidelines that are also shared with elected members.
Thanks, GM. Any further questions from any councillors? Yes, Councillor Angie.
Oh, sorry, just noting that earlier the administration said that it's important for the council to have the final say. So is it possible for some of that budget remaining from the major events budget to be used should council decide?
GM.
Through the Lord Mayor, that would be a budget decision that would need to engage with the CFO.
Okay. Any feedback that the CFO wants to give us?
Thank you, through the chair. Council does always have an opportunity to recommend an amendment to the budget. If that were the case, though, the council would also need to be mindful of our proximity to the end of financial year to ensure that that money can actually be expended in time.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, CFO. I'm going to give elected members the opportunity, if anybody has any questions with relation to items referenced A and B, as I had mentioned at the top. So can I just see a show of hands? If there are any questions, I'll vacate and ask the DLM. Okay, so thank you, everybody. We'll move forward then to 12.2, and this is the review of policy 2.11, heritage rates concession. Councillor Gordon is going to leave us now after declaring a direct file. If there are any questions, Councillor Fleeton has a follow-up. So thank you, Councillor Gordon. If you could shut that soundproof door on your way out, that would be greatly appreciated. Can't hear a thing we're saying now. Councillor Fleeton.
Thanks. So just in our handout, page 17, so we've got nil grants that have been approved under the program that we're talking about. We're pivoting towards, so we're not going to give the heritage concession anymore, but we're going to do this. Mindful it's in its first year, the heritage adaptive reuse. Do we want to hang on to this and see if it works for multiple years, or are we satisfied because it's nil and we're saying you're not going to get the concession because we're paying for something really useful over here, but no one's using it?
CEO, through to the GM.
Through the Lord Mayor, thank you for that question. It's a great chance to clarify that there are actually two different intended guidelines and programs. So the Heritage Adaptive Use program is different to what we have put forward in the CIBN for heritage conservation grants. So the conservation grants that are being referred to in this item are really talking about minor maintenance, visual impact, and follows on from our elected member engagement session as well. So they're very different budgets and also intent.
Sorry, that didn't answer my question. My question was, we've got a grant here that we're saying in the discussion paper is something that we're doing in this space, which we need money for, and we're cancelling this other concession. But this grant has not been used. Mindful that I moved the notice of motion, I want to see it used, but if the market's saying we don't want it, why don't we grab that money and keep this concession?
Yeah. CEO, through to the chair.
Through the Lord Mayor, really these decisions are for council in terms of the different types of programs, but again highlighting that the adaptive reuse is for significant reuse of heritage buildings, and that $4 million over 3 years, as opposed to this $200,000 program, which was intended to ensure that rather than simply be a concession that involved requiring evidence of pest management, for example, we were suggesting that it should be rolled over to that kind of quantum of foregone revenue into a program that is more aimed at visual amenity and support for small-scale match contributions for a conservation plan.
I appreciate that. So can I foreshadow and prep for next week that we take money from this thing that's sitting at nil, and if it's 200,000 and everyone gets the concession again for a year, I'd like to foreshadow that, and I'm sorry, CFO, if that's causing a heart attack at this late stage. If it's not possible, I appreciate it, but it seems crazy that we're pointing to something with a nil use.
Any commentary, CFO? I told everyone you were good with numbers earlier.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. After you having said that, it makes it difficult for me to not say that this can be achieved.
Tell us what is practicably
We will
achieved.
certainly do our best to see what we can accommodate. I guess it was probably not so much a financial issue, it was more around the administrative effort of the current scheme versus the relative simplicity of this new one. But if council's foreshadowing that, I'm happy to have a look at it.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Angie.
This Heritage Conservation Grant program, is that similar to, there was previously a match funding grant for heritage kind of revitalisation? Is that a similar concept?
CEO, GM.
Through the Lord Mayor, certainly we use the previous guidelines as a basis, but they have been amended and have been forwarded through as part of the CIBN for feedback from elected members.
So what was the reason that the previous grant system was ceased?
GM.
Through the Lord Mayor, I need to go back. That hasn't been something that's occurred in my time, I'm afraid.
Councillor Fleeton.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. So going back to the adaptive reuse grant, so $4 million over 3 years, we've got nil. Is there feedback on, is the guidelines too restrictive? Are they not helpful? Does the market not want it? Can we change it so it is useful?
Yeah, have there been any bites? I think was what Councillor Fleeton's saying. GM.
Through the Lord Mayor, certainly we are in discussions, and I think we've passed that forward in terms of information to elected members. It does require, when they're talking about adaptive reuse of heritage buildings, a significant amount of work and investigation. And that's what we're finding, that these are matters and submissions that will require significant background work and detail. Certainly, as we've acknowledged previously, that we do believe there's at least one that we foresee will come through. And if that does come through, that would be for a significant sum of support as well. So they are large scale and therefore require due diligence and review.
Thank you. So that can still happen, that process there, that can still happen, and we can still change 200,000 from this pool and it won't be impacted. Is that correct?
GM.
Through the Lord Mayor, at this point in time, none of that $4 million has been expended, so that really can be a decision for council, as has been alluded to.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, everyone. We're going to move on from 12.2 and invite Councillor Gordon. Who mysteriously jogged towards the window then. There must be somebody out there that tells her that it's time to come back in because we know she can't hear. 12.3, proposed members for the LGBTQIA plus advisory group. Some questions have been received by councillors. Initially, is there any follow-up or are there any questions on this item? Councillor Fleeton.
So just clarifying, page 18, we've spent 52,000 on legal fees for disputes. There's no open disputes. There's nothing that's going to spill over into the new financial year open right now.
CEO?
Correct.
Any further questions from any councillors? So we'll move to 13, that's Infrastructure and Operations Alliance and Commercial Services Alliance reports. There are not any. 14 is Corporate Services Alliance reports. 14.1, the monthly financial statements, March 2023. Any questions on this one? 14.2, Schedule of Accounts paid March 2023. Councillor Gordon, you had a question here. Satisfied? And are there any others?
Satisfied, thank you.
Thank you. 14.3 is differential rates. Are there any questions on this item? Thank you. We move to item 15, Chief Executive Officer reports, and 15.1 is the Parking Amendment Local Law 2023. I note some questions have been received by Councillor Fleeton. Councillor Fleeton, any follow-ups, and are there any other questions from any elected members? Thank you. Elected members? 16 is committee reports. 16.1, 2022-2023 OAG Annual Audit Plan Entrance Meeting. Councillor Gordon or fellow elected members? 16.2, discretionary sponsorship and grant funding. Again, Councillor Gordon, there was a question here on notice. Invite any follow-up or any questions on this item from councillors. 16.3 is the ARC report, Internal Audit Report Performance of ARC. There was a number of questions received by Councillor Fleeton, one from Councillor Gordon. I'll invite any follow-ups or questions from elected members on this item.
Can I ask a question on this one, Lord Mayor?
Yes, certainly, Councillor Bain.
So I said this through, but I figured it's a pretty straightforward question. Am I on the Audit and Risk Committee?
Thank you, Councillor Bain. CEO.
If I could invite the Audit and Risk Manager, Natasha Balderston, to respond, please.
Through the Lord Mayor. The committee is made up of the 6 members, which is the 4 elected members and the 2 independent members. The deputy member comes on board when we don't meet quorum, which is 3 according to the Local Government Act. So the committee is made up of the 6 members essentially.
Just to follow up, if I could. So do the terms of reference for the committee allow or make provision for a different class of member?
I'll have to take that on notice. I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you. I've written some extra questions, but they were quite late, so I'm happy to wait for next week.
They were the ones that were submitted, Councillor Bain, or emailed through, and you noted that they were after the deadline, so they will be answered by the administration. My understanding, I'm sure this is right, is that any elected member can attend, though, at any time, correct?
Correct.
Yes, and can I ask, again, I'm sure, but I'll just double check, are all of the Audit and Risk Committee meetings, can I go through to the Audit and Risk Manager, are they detailed on our intranet that we can all access?
Yes, the calendar of all meetings are available to elected members.
Council Hub, is that what I was looking for? Right.
So,
Councillor Gordon.
following Councillor Bain's question, in the absence of a quorum, can Councillor Bain attend and vote at an Audit and Risk Committee meeting?
Okay. CEO?
Correct. It would be on those occasions when the role that Councillor Bain occupies would step up. The terms of reference, as identified through the audit, are being updated and they're due to go to the August meeting.
So the role of the deputy member still exists, notwithstanding that it's not detailed in the terms of reference.
I think, was that the question that the audit and risk manager was taking on notice?
No, I think the question the audit and risk manager was taking on notice is, is the role contained in the terms of reference?
So, so they're related, therefore, aren't they?
But if maybe we could seek some advice from governance that what is the status of the position that Councillor Bain holds in relation to the Audit and Risk Committee membership?
Through the Lord Mayor, you are recognised as a deputy on that committee on our registers. That's how you're recorded. And as mentioned by the CEO, if we don't have a quorum, we will invite you to attend.
Thank you. If I could just follow up with a question/statement.
There has to be questions in this forum, Councillor.
Coming from you, Lord Mayor.
I know, but the Lord Mayor, the Lord Mayor does
The
get to
hypocrisy.
well, no, that's not actually. Hang on, Councillor Bain, that's not correct.
Very happy to ask a question.
Yeah.
Why then, as a committee member, albeit a deputy, was I not interviewed as part of this audit review process last year?
Okay. Question. Thank you. CEO.
That would be something that I would actually direct to the Audit and Risk Manager, please.
Through the chair, the period on which the audit was actually looking at was for calendar year 2022, and I wasn't sure, and I got to take this on notice, but I wasn't sure whether you were already on the committee as a deputy member at that time. We did invite all the ARC members that were part of the committee to be interviewed for this. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Noting I was appointed in October 2022.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions from any councillors? Councillor Fleeton.
Thanks. A follow-up first. So the answer to number 2 in our handout, page 24, states, the intention of this report is to provide information to council only. The actions included in the report are considered to be administrative. How can that possibly be the answer when you turn the page and 6 and 7 talk about the conduct of the meeting? The meeting is attended by elected members and independent members. That in itself is not administrative.
CEO.
Through to the Audit and Risk Manager, please, Lord Mayor.
Through the chair, I might ask the Manager Governance to answer this question.
Through the Lord Mayor, would you mind repeating the question, Councillor Fleeton?
Question number 2 on page 24. Your answer states, the intention of this report is to provide information to council only. The actions included in the report are considered to be administrative. How could that possibly be the case when over the page there are questions and answers regarding the conduct of the meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee, which is made up of elected members and independent members?
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, the actions are administrative in nature, so they might relate to the committee and its members, but the responsibility of completing those actions falls with the administration.
Follow-up, is not one of these areas of recommendation around the conduct of the chair of the committee, which is an elected member?
So I think we'll go back to governance. Yep, Manager of Governance.
Through the Lord Mayor, I'm not 100% familiar with every action. I believe there is one in there for the chair. However, again, it is for the administration to address any behaviour and make the chair aware of the outcomes and to guide the chair in chairing the ARC committee.
I think our auditors might take issue with that answer in that the city would lead the chair to an outcome. So I'll take issue with that. Answer 8 on the bottom of page 25. Why are we willing to wait until August to secure distribution method for independent members to receive their agenda papers?
Councillor, could you just repeat the question, please, if you don't mind? Just the last part. Last part.
Do you want to watch?
No, could you just repeat the question, please, Councillor?
Number 8, page 25.
Thank you.
it talks about the secure distribution method for agenda papers to independent members. Why are we waiting until August to fix this?
Thank you, Councillor Fleet. CEO.
If I could answer that, thank you. The recommendation is looking at the potential to actually have a new IT system. That this is where the auditors were coming from with that particular recommendation. So the city has taken that on notice to review before August if we can look at what methods might be available that might not include a completely new IT system. I think if I could invite the manager to add anything to that, and I do note we have our CAO also in the room who might have something to add.
Through the Lord Mayor. When we look at audit recommendations and we give due dates which then when we go back and verify them, we can actually verify them at that time it's implemented. The next ARC meeting is only in August. So if we had given a due date before then, if we had gone back and actually verified it, it would have been incomplete. So we require the time to actually consider it, and then we have the time to implement it, and then have enough time to actually show it's been implemented so we can verify that it's been done.
Thanks. A follow-up, and it might not be during your time, I grant you. I was on this committee, and I'd like to know over every single time frame that the committee or the admin has given the committee or council, so you said you would do something by a certain date, how many has been met and how many have been missed? So you're not going to be able to answer that now, I appreciate, but it would be very interesting to know.
Question on notice then, Councillor Fleet?
Sure.
Yep, okay. Any further?
Yes, number 11.
Yeah.
Page 26. ARC, the answer is ARC does not have a dedicated resource, but is coordinated by council governance team in the same way as other meetings of council are arranged. So is it the city's position that some of these issues might be fixed if we had a dedicated resource to the ARC committee or ARC?
CEO.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think we utilise the existing support we receive from the governance team because they're obviously well across the processes and ultimately all of the reports, support to a committee, and ultimately those reports that come to council need to have a consistency, and so I think the most efficient use of the resource and the understanding that the governance team have already is the most prudent use of resources.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you. I don't think my questions were particularly answered. This one's not attempted at all. Who is responsible for ensuring that council committees are compliant with relevant legislation and operate appropriately?
Hey, Councillor, what, just on the handout, you've got a page number?
Page 28.
28, yeah, and that's 16, is it?
16, I think it's six
Yeah.
different questions.
Sure.
It's just one here.
Oh, nice way of doing it.
So who is responsible for ensuring we are compliant?
CEO.
As the CEO, I would suggest I'm responsible for ensuring that the committee operates within the parameters and guidelines of its terms of reference.
Okay, and so were you aware of these findings prior to the audit commencing?
Councillor, the value that the city derives from any audit is actually an opportunity to improve our processes. This particular audit has suggested there's some enhancements. I think the report describes them as learnings. And so from our perspective, these are non-material but important, and we are on a journey of improving. And so this report will add to that.
So in the spirit of our journey of improving, the question I asked was, will the administration now proactively consider the same matters for other committees and the full council?
As some of the recommendations I think are unique to this particular audit and also derive some of the recommendations from overarching best practice in audit and risk committees, not necessarily where there is learning and application, yes.
Did we not just hear that we utilise the same people on the committees in order to achieve consistency?
And I think, Councillor, I said where there is learnings and opportunity, we will share.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Any further questions from any councillors?
So just another follow-up on one of my other questions. Is there a reason that papers aren't password protected, particularly when sending them to the independent member?
So yeah.
Unless the audit and risk manager would like to add to that, I'll take it on notice.
Through the chair, I will have to take it on notice.
Thank you. Any further questions from any councillors? Thank you. So we'll move then to 16.4. This is the verification of the implementation of audit recommendations. Do we have any questions, councillors? 16.5 is the 3-year strategic internal audit plan, financial year 23-24 to financial year 25-26. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Flayton.
Just checking, all of the stuff we were just asking about, the more one, this, is that going to impact your ability to meet what's in this 3-year plan?
The development of the 3-year plan has involved the general managers and the alliances in looking from our strategic risk perspective what areas we really would like to see examined, and we believe all of these are deliverable and within the timeframes.
Follow up, if you've got no one really attached to the committee who, am I getting confused around the people that do this work? It doesn't really matter if they're attached to the committee or not, that's still in their job remit?
So yeah.
I'm sorry, Councillor, I'm just a little bit unclear.
Yeah. So you've got ARC.
Yes.
There's no FTE associated with ARC and all the work that falls out of it, but you've got people in the organisation that will do tasks that support ARC.
Yes,
Yep.
so to explain the process of audit, so audits have terms of reference. Often there's an independent audit firm which is engaged to undertake it. They will work with the business to elicit the information and responses that the audit needs. It comes back through the general manager, and then the general manager will look to the recommendations. Management comments are provided. The governance area provide more the secretariat to the committee process, so the taking of the notes, the distribution.
Sure. So on that, my time on the committee, very rarely did the city meet its own timelines that it put on it. Have you learnt from that and given yourself some wiggle room? Because every ARC meeting, it was, oh, by the way, this is going to be late by 6 months. How about we amend it?
Absolutely, councillor, and yes, I think you'll find this particular plan is more reasonable. I think it's fair to suggest the organisation in the first couple of years had a very significant load as far as recommendations coming out of the inquiry. You'll also note the inquiry made recommendations of the timing of those recommendations, of those audits as well. So I feel that the audit burden that the city has contended with over the last few years has been driven by the inquiry, and particularly the inclination to really want to close many of those down. I think this plan is the first that is actually being driven from a risk assessment and is also involved the general managers.
Thanks. Follow up, just a final question. So the owner-occupier role you're presenting to the 7 August meeting, phase 2, whatever you present there by way of, hey, we recommend this be done, can we have approval? Will you have enough time to do what's needed?
Yes, we will, councillor, and it has been undertaken in 2 stages. So I think having broken the audit in that way that any early issues could be addressed. Again, we're hoping and anticipating a satisfactory outcome. There had already been a previous audit, one of the recommendations out of the inquiry. It was prudent to continue just before the next election, given it's a Lord Mayoral election as well, that we are confident this was one of the more serious recommendations in the inquiry.
Thank you. We'll move then to 16. Oh, Councillor Bain.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I just had a follow-on question from some of the questions that have been asked.
Yeah.
Can I just get some clarity on page 608 of our council pack?
Yeah.
There is a table that talks about the city's strategic risk profiles. and it's got the ELT risk rating. I'm assuming that's the executive leadership team. And is high the highest, or do we have very high? Like, what's the range?
Through to the audit and risk manager.
Through the chair, it goes as high as catastrophic. So it goes from, sorry, let me say that again. I'm thinking of a different table. No, the highest it goes to is very high.
Okay, so that's the strategic risk profile. So it's very high, high, medium, and low.
Yes.
And just to follow up, is this reflective of council's risk appetite?
So through the
Does
chair,
it mirror council's risk appetite? I suppose.
Sorry, Councillor Laws. Through the chair, we have to update the heading because we did a full strategic workshop with both the ELT and then it came through an EMES session to get councillors' input into it. The risk profile that we have there is the combined risk profile that was agreed to by both councillors and the ELT.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bonar. Just perhaps finish by saying, and the Deputy Lord Mayor, who's been a member of the Audit and Risk Committee, is it throughout the duration?
Not for the duration, but I did note in the previous item it listed me as deputy until a point in time, but I don't think I have rescinded that role.
And Councillor Angie, who's also been a long-standing member of the committee. At the last or second last, which may have been my first Audit and Risk Committee meeting as a member of the committee, I recall correctly, I believe, More Australia suggesting that the organisation was perhaps overburdened with the number of audits that were being conducted, and the strong suggestion was to refine the audit process, to bring the total number down, and that would be beneficial to A, very successful and streamlined audit process, and B, not overburden the organisation. Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Angie, is that your recollection also? Yes? Councillor Angie? Okay. Is there anything further from anyone? No? Okay. Let's go then to 16.6. Progress on the financial year 2022-23 audit plan. Any questions on this one? 16.7 is the OAG audit reports update. Any questions? 17 is motions of which notice has been given, and they'll be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting next week. And 18 matters for which the meeting may be closed. Items 18.1, 18.2 and 18.3 are designated confidential in accordance with sections 5.232F and 5.232C of the Local Government Act 1995. If any councillors have questions relating to these items, we will need to move behind closed doors and pause the live stream. Any questions? Okay, Councillor Bevan, thank you. So we are going to ask those in the gallery to leave the room if they can, and we need to move a motion. No, we don't need to. We've done. So we'll reopen the meeting. Let the floodgates open. Live stream back on? Yep, it is. Doors are open. 19 is urgent business, and this item will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting. Councillor Bevan.
For urgent business, when will we have the King's photograph behind you, Lord Mayor?
That's interesting because the King has made an appearance and at citizenship. I'm told there is a grace period of. I have inquired about this. There's a. We are waiting currently for the approved photograph to come from Buckingham Palace, which will come via Government House next door. And as such time, there is an approved grace period where the previous monarch's photo can hang. If that's not correct, you'll be advised in writing, Councillor.
So the photo we're using downstairs for the
Is
citizenship
the temporary one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not the official portrait shot. Yeah. With that, no further business. I'm going to declare the agenda briefing session closed at 7:05 p.m. Thank you, my friends.
Could you please all rise for the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor of Perth, Mr Basil Zemplis.
All invited to join us for dinner. Thank you.
Thank you.